Listen to your favorite shows live and on demand 24/7. Download the 77 WABC mobile app now. This is the Jeanine Pirro Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Joining us is the chairman and CEO of the Colonial Metals Group, Paul Stone. Please join me in welcoming Paul Stone to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Now, folks, I spoke to Paul Stone. I said, Paul, how would you like me to introduce you? He said, basically, I'm a son, a brother, a father, and it just shows you how self-deprecating he is. Not that any of those situations is something to not be proud of, but he is an amazing patriot, an individual who has founded Colonial Metals Group and is in the process of writing a book, which I think is so important because of his knowledge on the economy and on money. And I wanted to bring someone to you to explain to you a little bit about the economy and about the dollar and what it all means. Because, you know, we all get hit with these 30-second, 1-minute commercials and we're like, yeah, sounds good, but we don't really do anything. So I wanted Paul Stone to come on with Colonial Metals Group and talk about the economy, and you're going to be struck by how much of a patriot he really is. So, Paul, welcome, and we're thrilled to have you this beautiful Sunday morning. How did you get involved in Colonial Metals?
I wanted, a company that really focused on listening and hearing and relating itself to our older clients. Generally, folks that are looking at protecting their savings with gold and silver are in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s. So we need to make sure that we're very diligent and show how much we care and revere the hard lives that they lived, right? Especially the 70, 80, and 90-year-olds. They built the country. Like, they put this place together. Yeah,
they built the streets that we walk on, Paul. And, you know, there's so many reports about the U.S. dollar dying. And I got to tell you, I was on vacation, and I talked about it in my opening, and I was in Portugal. Let me tell you, the dollar is nowhere near as strong as the euro. There are reports that the U.S. dollar is dying. What does that mean? Does a currency die?
Yes, they can. Right. And so a recent example would be all of the European countries once had their own currencies, the franc, the German Deutschmark, the Italian lira.
Right.
And they gave up those currencies for the euro. Why would they have to do that? Why would they give up that piece of individuality, a nation and its own currency? Because they had printed those currencies to death. Right. We look at what's happening here in our homeland, and we look at other countries that have encountered this mass problem as we've encountered it. They just didn't have the sheer size to go as long as the U.S. economy has gone by destroying its dollar. So, yes, they can die and end up worthless.
Okay. The other day, Donald Trump went to was it a Bitcoin or a cryptocurrency convention, and a lot of people were excited about that. What is that?
I'm all for how the new and ingenious dynamic creations out of the human mind can support and solve problems for needs that we have here on Main Street. I'm a little confused by, if you think about the dependencies you have to embrace, right? Right now, to do business in the dollar, you must embrace the dependencies on, is the government going to treat me right? Is the Fed going to respect this currency that my paychecks are based in, that my home values are based in? With a cryptocurrency, who do you meet with if something goes wrong with a cryptocurrency? There's no one in charge. Supposedly the creator of Bitcoin is a fictitious person, Satoshi Nakashima.
Really?
No one has ever stepped forward and taken a bow on creating the blockchain technology.
Yeah. I don't even understand it. So before I get into Colonial Metals, I mean, what about the Fed? I mean, they're talking now about the Fed reducing the interest rate. I mean, how do they play around with this? Do they just print money? What is the substance? What is the basis of the American dollar?
So we call it printing money, but the government, there's about $2.5 trillion in cash around the globe, the American dollar cash. Supposedly about 40% of that's here. I think the rest is in Colombia.
Really?
Kidding. That was a joke.
Oh.
Okay. Bad joke.
I don't know anything about currency, so go ahead.
Well, so in the old days, they would print money, literally print it and issue it out before the internet obviously existed. And it was the term for artificial money. You're creating money that wasn't born out of the labor efforts within the economy. It was like if you went broke in your Monopoly game, you just reached over for another game board and unwrapped it and started with a new bank from that game board, right? So now you're playing two games.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the government creating this money, we've now call it debt. We also call it debt. There's $35 trillion in debt. One, that's not debt because there is never really going to be an effective effort to repay that. Mm-hmm. And what it is, though, but it does carry an interest payment, right? You hear, well, the interest on the national debt now is over $1 trillion a year. Well, if you lower interest rates, this is why the Fed is forced, as soon as they can, to lower rates. It's not to necessarily give a gift to the economy. All these kids, it's like treating us like kids that we want Christmas every week. Mm-hmm. And the gifts of cheap borrowing. If a plane ticket to France costs $10,000 to go to the Olympics, some people are going to think, maybe we'll go in 4 years somewhere else. We'll do something else and take a vacation and do something that's not as expensive. So borrowing money, the interest rate, if borrowing money is expensive, then it cools economic activity, which then helps kill inflation. But in a country right now, Judge, where the money printing can't stop, whether Trump's in office or, a miracle would need to happen for this math problem to disappear. Trump would be the very best candidate to preside over an eventual math-driven implosion. So I don't have a crystal ball. I just look at the math, and I look at the track record of the government. They don't have any different ideas. They're going to continue to print. They have to. They have to print the money to pay the interest payment. So when you talk about lowering rates, it's to help the government not have to pay $1 trillion in debt service costs each year. They can bring that down, but it juices the economy to create inflation again.
Which is what happened with the Inflation Reduction Act, which was so poorly named.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. What? Okay, so if people save money and money is becoming less and less valuable, what are their options?
When you look around at, let's say that we're riding this financial elevator to the very, very top floor. Eventually, we hit the ultimate, however tall the skyscraper is, the 289th floor, and maybe right now we're up on floor 260, 270. And why would I say that? Well, if you plunge down on something, you're also then pushing up on something. So if we're pushing down, if the government is pushing down on the value of the dollar by printing it, they're pushing up commodity prices and asset prices. So if you want to get a home, I'm just going to use even numbers. In 1971, a home was around $10,000. Today it's $440,000. How do you get a home that's worth $10,000 to be worth? Well, you would need a lot of people if you didn't print any money. Now, the population is only up by 40%. So if we have 10 people are in the line at the bank for a mortgage, and now there's 4%, 40% more, then you have a 40% increase on demand for homes, and you haven't made any new ones. That $10,000 house would be a $14,000 house today. Wow. A $440,000 house is because they just flooded the world with money and you essentially armed each person to own 10 homes, if you will. So you have massive amounts of. Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
So when you're talking about saving money, the dollar is now worth 3 cents.
Yes, exactly. So
that means
the ordinary American, you can't save enough money to buy a house. You can't.
Well, here's the point.
So
when
what
you
do
talk
people
about
do?
Protecting right. So if the dollar, remember, the dollar's pushing down, so asset values are pushing up. We're riding this elevator to the 289th floor. And if the dollar's only worth 3 cents and it was worth 10 and 20 and 50 and 80 cents, if it's only worth 3 cents today, you can't push down much further to push up much higher.
Right.
What works? What can I jump out from this, the nosebleed seats in values for things that won't lose its value when this charade can't continue? And the only thing that really fits the bill and is you own outside the internet is gold and silver. Physical gold and silver is something you don't need the internet for. I don't need my smartphone to work to get at it. And people could say, well, if the whole world falls apart, everything's worth nothing. That's not true. Before I continue, though, did you want me to clarify? Is there anything? I don't want to.
No, I got it. I'm listening
clarity
to you, but I know. But here's the question that I have. When our founding fathers started this country, I mean, did they, what was their dictate as it relates to the economy? Can we look back and say, well, we should be doing this or we should be doing that, or can we interpret anything from history? Let's just go back to the founding fathers. What can you tell us?
They called for gold to be the only form of money in this country, constitutionally required. Limits. And here's why. So how could the founders understand you want a small federal government? If your life is built off experiencing monarchies, let's pretend that's a triangle. Monarchy's at the top, all of us serfs are down at the bottom. If you flip the triangle upside down, you want a tiny government, not a monarchy. You want a tiny federal government that has some negotiating power but can't get in and mess with your life. Right? And that way all the people, the serfs, are at the top instead of the other way around. Well, when you look at what gold does, and it's not about really about gold. What it is the limit. It's a leash on a dog that wants to run crazy through the town. And if you don't keep it leashed, that's what it'll do. So the government is leashed by the gold standard to not create any money artificially out of thin air and then harm you and me. And the government can't swell in size way beyond its effective utilization. So when Reagan was president, government payroll was $75 billion a year, and he thought that was extreme, remember?
What are we now?
Today, government payroll is $1.4 trillion.
Wow, double. It's double.
So if it was $100 trillion with Reagan, $100 billion with Reagan, your government has grown by 1,400% in 40 years. 1,400%. Now, if that was the stock, you'd be very happy with that.
Yeah, but it's not. And
people.
The average American is losing. But the average American is losing. So, I mean, I don't have to understand everything you're saying, Paul Stone, because when you talk money with me and a lot of people, it just goes over our head. But it's really very simple. The dollar is worth 3 cents. Our founding fathers created a gold standard that we're supposed to be controlled by, and we're out of control right now. So this young generation right now doesn't have a shot at getting a house, and the seniors who have been saving their money for retirement, it's not buying anywhere near what they thought it was going to buy. So what do you do?
Picture this ride up the escalator to higher and higher and higher and higher asset value heights, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of people have been catching this ride, but sadly, Judge, I'd be willing to guess 60% of our country has been that ride has been working against them.
Of
And
course.
they've been driven lower. But for anyone with saved money, if you say, okay, the dollar eventually is worth a tenth of a penny and a coffee is $30,
Oh my gosh.
no one's then going to work anymore because you can't possibly get paid enough to buy coffee.
Oh my gosh.
So then everything stops, and I'm in this elevator on the 270th floor. I don't want to ride that back to the bottom. I want to punch out into and I didn't make up this term, but it cutely fits very conveniently right now, the golden parachute, because only gold and silver has a history of freezing your value when you move your money into it. And then during a crisis, it goes even higher.
Well, right now,
That's the solution that I suggest people take a hard look at.
okay, and everybody knows, or most people look, because if I know it, I assume most people know it, gold is incredibly high right now, and that's exactly what you predicted based upon your analysis.
Yeah, and and another great unbiased viewpoint by gold back to us, reflecting back to us, trying to give us a signal, is it really can't be anything unless there's falsehood in your economy. So when gold was $300 at the turn of the century, the baby boomers are retiring in 97. We are now going into this black hole, financial black hole that the government could have solved, but because they don't have a track record of really solving anything and putting it away. They can address tons of stuff, but I mean putting the issue away. You know, they don't have a track record for doing that. It doesn't look like any central government has that kind of track record.
All right, and never forget, that's the commitment we made on 9/11. Honor it by donating $11 a month to the Tunnel to Towers Foundation at T2T.org. That's T, the number 2T.org.
It's the Judge Janine Show.
America. We are endowed by our Creator with certain unalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. At Grand Canyon University, we believe in equal opportunity, and the American dream starts with purpose. By honoring your career calling, you impact your family, your friends, and your community. The pursuit to serve others is yours. Find your purpose at Grand Canyon University. Private, Christian, affordable. Visit gcu.edu.